Damen und Herren, wir haben heute eine kleine Unterhaltung mit einer Autorität über die deutschen nationalen sozialistischen fliegenden Untertassen. Herr Vladimir Terziski wird uns erklären über seine Nachrichten und alle Weisen, was er sich erkundigt hat, und wird uns ein bisschen darüber reden. Herr Vladimir Terziski.
Thank you very much for this lovely introduction in German. I am sitting here on the most famous couch of the Western Hemisphere, the couch of the American Academy of Dissident Sciences, and this would be another underground interview with the underground video here present on this very skeptical, very tabloid, very hard to believe topic of secret German flying machines and secret German research and development in anti-gravity before and during the Second World War. Actually, I would like to expand the topic a little bit more to cover secret research and development, black project research and development in anti-gravity and spaceflight by the terrestrial secret societies that are totally in control of the events on our planet, and research that has been going on with a tacit tutelage of extraterrestrial races, but research that has been entirely under the control of the terrestrial secret government. In my last year of research, being a physicist and an engineer by training, and being fluent in several major languages, I speak freely Japanese, Russian, German, my native Bulgarian, English, and I read technical papers in several other languages. But this knowledge of languages allowed me to put information together about these devices, information that is all of it in the public domain, but it is very hard to get because it is little bits and pieces scattered all over the world. And in my last year of research, I have realized that the Germans were not the first country on earth to build flying saucers before and during the Second World War. I really did discover photographs, engineering drawings, sketches, and finally documentary video film footage of experiments and low-level flights over the testing grounds in Germany that we will show in a minute. I did discover more than 50 different models of flying saucers that the Germans built, using every single engine that they had at their disposal. There were flying saucers powered with piston propeller engines, with Wankel propeller combinations. There were craft that were using a hybrid helicopter propeller lift in conjunction with anti-gravity lift, and there were craft that were using purely anti-gravity lift, powered by inboard and outboard turbojet engines, pulse jet engines, ramjet engines. Finally, the Germans produced many rocket engine powered craft that had clear exo-atmospheric capabilities and could go in orbit around the Earth and to the Moon, probably on a truckload of kerosene, a truckload of liquid oxygen. And the most advanced models that the Germans had were craft with spinning magnetic fields around the hull. The hull was stationary. Or craft that were utilizing electromagneto-gravitic tachyon drives and using free gravitational energy as the fuel for the flight. Fuel, quote, quote. My initial research in anti-gravity, I did a thorough anthropological study of stories about anti-gravity from different places and times, from academic, from tabloid sources, from modern day revelatory sources and ancient scriptural accounts, from contactee reports, and in all of them I found a major common denominator between the drives of the craft that have been observed on the planet. It is either the whole craft or parts of the outermost part of the hull would be spinning, or if we don't see any spinning of the brute mass of the ship, then we would hear a noise of an electric generator or an electric drill, a noise that would shift in frequency and pitch, coupled to the sharpness of the maneuvers, or whether the craft is hovering or steeply taking off. At takeoff, the frequency increases. Electric generator or electric drill is a machine that basically produces this noise through some spinning of some parts inside the craft. And finally, if nothing is visibly spinning or no noise is heard, still in most of the other accounts we would see lights spinning around the craft, changing their pulsation, their color, which means their frequency, and usually the speed of spinning of these lights around the edge of the saucer-shaped lenticular craft will be proportional to the G forces negotiated by the craft. At takeoff we have rapid increase in the spinning. We have also frequency changes from lower frequency of red and orange into the higher white and bluish frequencies. So my overall conclusion that I have laid down in several videos that are available from the phone number, my phone number that we would give at the end of this film, the number of the American Academy of Distant Sciences. In several of these videos I've laid down very extensively my whole research and my rediscovery of anti-gravity through the anthropology of myth, through basically correlating myths and legends about anti-gravity. Simply that it is very easy to produce anti-gravity. It is produced by spinning any mass, any object. If it spins fast enough, it loses weight. If it spins even faster, a critical moment would come when it would lift off and fly away. So if you spin the hell out of it, it would take off and fly away. And I was even able to answer for myself the utmost question, the ultimate question of how to build a better flying saucer. It is very simple. From the slow velocity spinning of brute masses of the heavy hull or parts of the hull of the ship towards the high velocity spinning of fine energy, high frequency fields around the hull of the craft that is kept steady. So the most important conclusion is that we don't need any fancy technology, that anti-gravity is extremely easy to produce. Any frisbee in flight has an additional anti-gravity component on top of the aerodynamic wing lift coming from the aerodynamic shape of the frisbee. Piston powered styrofoam made UFO model craft that I bought from Toys R Us store has explicitly in its instruction manual that after turning the piston engine on, that has a ducted fan inside the craft, you still have to spin the craft opposite the anti-clockwise in order to get it off the ground. And many other accounts, but the bottom line is that anti-gravity is extremely easy to produce. Simple rotation produces anti-gravity. You can spin the hull of the craft, you can spin magnetic or fine energy fields around the craft, and we can produce it. Any third world nation can produce that with the hardware available to them. We don't need alien technology gifts or hand-me-downs or traits, barters with their technology to produce anti-gravity. I do believe that aliens come and visit our planet. I tend to agree with Billy Meyer's claims that we are visited every year by plus minus 3,000 different ET races, which explains the tremendous variety of geometrical shapes of UFOs and motherships that we see around our planet. But at the same time, I do believe that there is a tremendous secret underground black project research and development program of the superpowers around the world, and jointly to conquer the space of our solar system and way beyond, using anti-gravity produced with very simple rotational means. So in this discussion I would like to basically touch on three major topics. The topic of secret terrestrial anti-gravity research that culminated in a grand program in Germany during the Second World War. The revelations of Bob Lazar, which I believe are true, about an anti-gravity craft flying on element 115 that was given to the American government by, it was a technology gift or hand-me-down by a given alien race. And finally, I would like to talk about the probably the most forbidden topic on our planet, the topic of free energy. Just in order to whet the interests of our public here, I would like to go very briefly over the documentary evidence that came recently from a video documentary film made by the secret German society, the Thule Gesellschaft, which is one of the many such secret Illuminati type societies on our planet, serving the same overall super-terrestrial, extraterrestrial and celestial management evilarchy that controls our planets. Let's call them the invisible Politburo of the planet. The Thule Society produced the film less than a year ago. It has never been distributed officially or shown on German television or anywhere else in the world. And I think this is the only copy of this film available in the United States. Here in a very beautiful drawing done by Jim Nichols in Phoenix, one of the leading artists on UFOs, we see the top model of the turbojet family of saucers. This is the Belonzo Mite Shriver craft, powered initially by 12 inboard BMW turbojet engines that were used for the Messerschmitt 262 plane, and later they developed a single donut-shaped turbojet engine. All of this material I've discussed extensively in several of my initial TV shows and cable programs about German craft. There is an intermediary stage of rocket-powered craft, some of the larger ones of which were able to land on the moon, literally on a truckload of oxygen and a truckload of liquid, on the kerosene and liquid oxygen. But this film deals primarily with electromagnetogravitic saucers of spinning electromagnetic fields around the hull of the craft that were powered with tachyon converters, tachyon drives, which that were powered by Hans Kohler converters. Hans Kohler is well known in the field of free energy for his converter that converts gravitational energy into electromagnetic energy of the flight. These are low-level flights over the testing ground in Germany in the autumn of 44 and the spring of 45. And we would see some, I'll keep this here, closer-ups. The first family of crafts that were produced were the Vril interceptor fighters of about 30 feet diameter, 11 meters 64 centimeters to be exact, that were making 2,900 kilometers an hour. One-seater interceptor fighter. They were to have an a cannon mounted and remotely controlled under the craft. This is the cannon mounting platform on the second prototype of the series. They were still test flying the craft, so the cannon is not mounted here. We see that probably this is the early spring of 45. The craft in low level, high G maneuvers, low level flights over the testing ground. Obviously the Germans wanted to see to show the agility of this craft. later models were produced. This is the Vril 1, subsequent models of the Vril type, all the way up to Vril 9 and Vril I think 14. I don't have photographs of the subsequent models. These are the initial variations of the Vril craft. Here in this enlarged photo we can see the head of the pilot clearly visible through the transparent plexiglass cupola and his pair of sunglasses. These craft were definitely able to go beyond the atmosphere and into Earth's orbit. The next generation or family of craft that the Germans built were much larger. These were the much larger tank killer type craft of the Honeyball class. They were 75 feet diameter, about 25 meters in diameter, with one or several tank guns mounted on turrets underneath the craft. They were 3 stories tall, 30 feet diameter, 30 feet tall on the center axis, and they were weighing about 100 tons. A lot of skeptics have raised the issue, well, this couldn't be a more stupid idea of hanging a heavy 15-ton tank turret under a UFO. It would never fly. Well, actually the power of these anti-gravity tachyon drives was so immense that it was able to lift this heavily armored with steel plates craft in the air. The weight of the craft was about 100 tons. And we see here different photographs of these craft in flight with different models of tank turrets. We were able to identify the model of the gun, the model of the turret, the model of the tanks these turrets came from. This is a later model built in the 60s by the Germans from their South Polar base, and this is the topic of another documentary film of us. Here in this later model, the Germans are using magnetic lasers or masers. So this is not only a free energy craft, but this is also a free ammunition craft. By converting the gravitational energy of the Earth's gravitational field into electromagnetic energy, this is how these masers are powered. So this craft does not have to land and reload ammunition. And in the early 50s, the Germans, from their underground base on the South Pole, developed very heavy electromagnetic force field shields around the craft, so the craft did not have to be as heavily armored as the first models. We see how more finished looking is this subsequent craft that the Germans built. And the most detailed photographs here that we have, we can trace here, we can find the German cross used by the Luftwaffe, the identification numbers on the bottom of the craft. Another German cross here. We can even decipher the 2 different models of these tank turrets. This is a Tiger tank turret, the Mark IV or the Panzervier turret, and this is the Panther tank turret or the Mark V or the Panzerfünf type turret. Only one model was built by this much larger craft. This is the Honeyball 3 craft for naval warfare. That was 71 meters diameter. It's about 220 feet diameter. And in that documentary film, the Germans claimed that they took that craft to Mars and landed on Mars in the middle of January 1946 after an 8 months of very heavy flight. Crash landed but survived. A joint German-Japanese expedition. Also, the film shows drawings as early as 43 of German cigar-shaped motherships that were powered by 4 Andromeda-type, larger-size tachyon drives. And these could be good candidates of photographs of such craft in flight around our planet.
Can you hold that up for the bottom picture? We can't see.
This one?
Yes.
This is a photograph of the mothership in flight. It could be an alien mothership easily, but
Just a little.
from the drawings,
That's
from the drawings coming from the secret German research facilities, we clearly see the designs of a monstrous flying submarine, flying U-boat, that was able to carry one of these tank killers inside and 3 of the interceptor fighter class smaller craft in its hull. So after this brief discussion and pictorial presentation of the German saucer heritage, we can go very briefly through what happened of this technological cornucopia, these incredible technological inventions after the end of the war, in 2 very good books, Genesis and Inception by Harbinson, and in Renato Vesco's book Intercept But Don't Shoot is given the story of the German heritage. Part of the engineers and production facilities were captured by the Russians, which gave rise to the ghost rocket stories over Scandinavia in the late 40s and early 50s, and the newspaper account of a Russian saucer crash in Spitsbergen in northern Norway in 1952, a saucer that was able to fly 100 kilometers up and 30,000 kilometers, almost 3/4 around the globe. This was definitely a saucer with exo-atmospheric capabilities. 100 kilometers is the altitude of flight of the Vostoks, Voskhod, Geminis and Mercury spaceships. Renato Vesco in his book details in great detail in the movement of captured researchers and designs, drawings, machinery and semi-produced or finished craft to northwestern Canada, where the British continued hastily to build, test and duplicate the German anti-gravity effort. Later on, presently about 6-7 superpowers on this planet have research on anti-gravity, extensive research, and my personal belief is that what we see as a science fiction scenario on Star Trek is a everyday 9-to-5 job reality for a small number of elite military officers and scientists. But this is a topic of another interview probably. The more I've gone in the research of secret anti-gravity and spaceflight programs on our planet, the more I've realized that it is extremely easy to produce anti-gravity, and that the first accounts go way before the Germans. I have an engineering drawing of the lenticular aerodyne, a craft that was built by Henry Coanda in France in the 1930s, that served as the father of the whole family of turbojet powered craft built by the Germans in the 1940s. I have discovered 14 accounts of lenticular craft observed in and around the United States in the 1910s and 20s that had people with Navy uniforms manning the craft, people speaking English, American English, dressed in US Navy uniforms. My feeling is that these are secret Navy projects with anti-gravity ships utilizing the Tesla designs. I tend to believe what Harbinson says about the ghost airships of the 1890s is true, and that airships with extremely advanced propulsion systems, possibly even verging on a hybrid airship slash anti-gravity combination or airship slash free energy combination, were built in the United States in the late 1890s, and they gave the rise of all these stories of the ghost airships. John Keely presented to the American War Ministry in the 1860s a flying anti-gravity free energy platform that rose silently, moved at incredible speed. He was sitting on a chair on top of the platform, came back and landed silently. The guys from the ministerium said that, well, we don't see any possible use of your design. These are all secret projects run by the secret terrestrial conspiracies, by the secret terrestrial societies. I would say a few sentences about some very nice introductory books on modern conspiratology. None dare call it conspiracy is a very good book for this matter. That is an introductory book in the topic. Fourth Reich of the Rich was extremely interesting to me in illuminating, no pun intended, the financing of the world communist movement of Eastern Europe, of Soviet Russia, of the October Revolution, of the First Communist International of Marx and Engels, and even the sponsoring of the writing of the Communist Manifesto of the World Communist Movement by Marx and Engels, as basically being the political and the economic manifesto of the world financial banking Illuminati elite. Another important book that deals with the interface between the terrestrial conspiracy layers and the extraterrestrial layers is the book with a proper name, Cosmic Conspiracy by Stan Deyo. I greatly recommend that book to anyone who would like to study conspiratology from a hierarchical perspective. It is not modern, it's not fashionable to talk about conspiratology in modern day academia. They would look with a lot of pity at yourself for having slided down the schizophrenic pathway. On the contrary, I can label myself a super conspiratologist. I do believe that all of the conspiracy theories that we've heard and read are true, but they are just simply little stones of these multiple hierarchical levels of terrestrial conspiracies, political conspiracies, economic conspiracies above them, secret society conspiracies above them, the Freemasonry, Bilderbergers, the Illuminati, the German secret societies, and finally we come to the highest level of terrestrial conspiracies, to these secret unseen politbureaus of underground societies that invariably interface with representatives of extraterrestrial and celestial management hierarchies of this part of the universe. This is a very good visual image, this two-level pyramid, the material part underneath and the super material, the quasi-material, the metaphysical part of this. My research into comparative revelatology and comparative contactology, if I may call them in this way, my research and comparison attempts to correlate revealed images of the universe as they came to us from different contactee encounter cases. The book series by Wendell Stevens, UFO's Contact with Different Planets, is the best series in the world in this field, in my opinion. But my comparison of these different philosophies has told me that basically all of the terrestrial religions have been inspired by visiting extraterrestrial tutor missions, Peace Corps volunteer missions. All of our secret societies have been secretly in contact with extraterrestrial representatives for the past 2, 5, 15, 50,000 years. And even at present, according to the book The Cosmic Conspiracy, according to the CIA itself, they were able to pinpoint only 8 out of the 10, let's call them the Politburo members of the Illuminati. The other 2 were, quote, quote, bordering on the paranormal. They were simply beings that were materializing for the meeting and dematerializing at the end of the meeting, so nobody could trace their coming and going out of this building. I do believe that all the secret societies have been very quietly orchestrated, coordinated, managed by the supermaterial, non-material, extraterrestrial and celestial management hierarchies, and I do believe that there are several major such hierarchies quietly arm wrestling each other for influence on our planet. The Trinitarian is one of them, the Jehovian is another one, the, shall I call them, the reincarnational hierarchies are the third major power center in our universe. The Luciferian branch of the Trinitarian hierarchy probably plays the most important role on our planet. This is a topic for another interview in the future. Probably one of the most interesting topics that would interweave and correlate happenings on our planet from the cultural, from the religious, from the philosophical, from the political, and from the even extraterrestrial visitation domains into one complex picture. But back to our discussion and my little humble discovery, quote, quote, of anti-gravity. And back to the conclusion we made at the beginning of this interview, that anti-gravity is extremely easy to obtain, that free energy is extremely easy to obtain. John Keely invented a 250 horsepower locomotive running on free gravitational energy in the 1870s. Tesla invented many free energy designs, and according to the book by Hans Snipper, Revolution in Technology, Medicine and Society, Tesla had a free energy car, a Hispano Suiza, that he removed the gasoline engine and put an electric motor in it, and it was running for 3 years on a very small, about this size, wooden box converter that resembled a radio set, made by T. Henry Maury, or running on a T. Henry Maury gravitational energy converter. The same converters that, according to Tom Bearden, the Russians are using to power their Tesla scalar howitzers. Schauberger produced free energy designs in Austria. Small armchair-sized generator, powerful enough to light one family house or drive a car. Some of Schauberger's saucer designs were free energy designs, as were all of these most advanced German craft of the Vril and Honeybu type that were using the tachyon electromagnetic-gravitic drives powered by the Hans Kohler gravitational to electromagnetic energy converter. So we realized that there is a long list of secret research and development that has been going on in the planet, entirely in the control of our secret societies. Experiments in anti-gravity, experiments in space flights, experiments in free energy research. About the genetic experiments and the underground gulag goal of Frankensteinian factories run by our government, we'll talk in the future. But our research has shown, I have a friend that has seen in government custody a documentary film about genetic experiments in German concentration camps of combining humans with animals, living hybrids, half human, half animal. A horrific film that a representative of the Simon Wiesenthal foundation that was there to fight for the release of that film, threw up on the floor 15 minutes into the screening, and this was the end of their attempt to release the film. It was too horrific to be shown to any audiences. And that happened many years ago, 15 years ago probably. But in parallel to this secret research in anti-gravity, space flights, free energy, genetic engineering, we have the research that Albilik is talking about: time travel, teleportation, throughportation, the Phoenix Tunnel, the time tunnel technology, which is a step beyond teleportation, which allows for any being, terrestrial or extraterrestrial, including a being of the fallen angelic kind, to be quickly transported to any point, evacuated to any point of our universe in bases that have been already set up by our government according to Albilik. So back to the revelations by Bob Lazar that the highest level of technological attainment that we have in the underground bases is at the Area 51 and S4 in north of Nevada, north of Las Vegas, Nevada, is the saucer that is powered by the element 115, element that is not on our it is not present on our planet. Obviously it was given to us by some extraterrestrial race. My personal feeling is that this story is all true. I do believe that Bob Lazar is a very good, fine physicist. I do believe that this craft exists there and was test flown successfully. I do believe that this craft runs on element 115. Any one of the 70 or so underground races that have been secretly doing research in the underground Frankensteinian factories of our government for the last 50 years could have brought this element on our planet, or the Star Trek flights with the nuclear powered saucers that our government has been using for the last almost 20 years for flights inside and outside of the solar system. They could have brought the element to Earth. It could have been produced with the metaphysical, with the alchemical schools of thought that are run by the Illuminati again. All we hear about alchemistry is that it is a quack, pseudo, non-existing science. But at the same time, in the secret Illuminati schools, the choice representatives of the power elite are taught how to transmute elements, how to do all the 9 yards of tricks that we read about the science of alchemistry. For us, it's a schizoid tabloid fiction. For other more advanced races and for the secret societies on this planet, it's a mundane, repeatable, verifiable, provable technology. So I do believe that such a craft exists that is powered by element 115. But what is the fine spin control twist given to the story? I am totally confident that technology used in this craft has been in government control for the last 20-30 years, that the government has been totally capable of designing and building this craft in the secret underground research facilities run by Lockheed, Northrop, General Electric, General Dynamics, all the major defense contractors. I've heard stories, and I've been compiling book and newspaper and journal articles about government research, US government and other superpower research in anti-gravity in the last 50 years. And there have been literally dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of anti-gravity black projects researched by the major superpowers around the globe. So the fine spin control twist of the story is that the government would like to cover up with all means possible, all the means of its gigantic propaganda machine, the New World Order propaganda machine that is knocking on our doorsteps, to cover the fact that free energy is extremely easy to produce, that we are literally floating into a sea of energy, to use the words of the famous book by T. Henry Morey, The Sea of Energy That the Earth Floats In, we are literally bombarded with Niagara Falls of free energy that pulsates through the capillary lifeblood system of the universe. It is obvious to everybody why the ruling elite of our planet would like to have us still paying $10 or $15 or $20 every time we tank our cars, when Tesla had a gravity energy powered car 50 years ago running. It is very obvious to any one of us, of the humble workers, of the, how should I call us, slaves in that Illuminati empire, that in the future the power elite would like to sell us a technology for interstellar spaceflight that uses a very expensive energy. Element 115 would be trucked, shipped to our planet with crafts belonging to the same Illuminati consortium, and they would continue charging us every time we would be filling the tank of our saucer in the 21st, 22nd and subsequent centuries. This is why the stories of free energy craft in Germany have been wildly suppressed. Free energy stories have been viciously debunked. Cold fusion stories have been attacked with well substantiated budgets. Although German engineers gave online a cold fusion power plant to Juan Perón in '52, and some of them are still living in Argentina. So to wrap up the whole story, I do believe that there is a lot of truth in the revelations given by Bob Lazar, and I do believe that he is a fine physicist, but I do not believe that this is a craft that is a technology gift to us by an alien race. I do believe that our own terrestrial science and technology has been capable of building such craft for more than half a century. Anyone who has worked in secret intelligence knows that the technologies and hardware and gadgetry used by the secret services, and especially the secret societies above the secret services, are between 50 and 100 years ahead of the technology we use. I mean, the incandescent lights that are lighting this studio here, the alternating current, was invented by Tesla in the 1880s and 1890s, exactly 100 years ago. How many other things did Tesla and hundreds of other researchers invent that vanished without trace in the vaults, in the safes of the Illuminati, that fell in the blacklist of forbidden technologies that are not yet for mass distribution and public release? We've been told that, well, if a sudden change of energy supplies happens in our society, this would wreak a total economic chaos and this would cause the collapse, the economic collapse of our whole civilization. What a ultimate nonsense and stupidity could this statement be? Of course it would be the end of the Illuminati control of energy supply of the planet. It would be the end of their skimming of zillions of dollars for gasoline consumption all over the planet. But this definitely would not be the end of the civilization as we know it. On the contrary, this would be the beginning of an unheard of renaissance in spiritual development, in educational attainment, with the powers of our present day technology built on our 20th century mass public domain hardware. We can easily build a society where people would be working 3-4 hours a day, 3-4 days a week. The rest of the time would be devoted to studies, to entertainment, to education and self-fulfillment. But this is exactly what the ruling evilarchy of this planet would like to prevent from happening.
Question for you. You don't deny that there has been alien influence on Earth cultures, do you?
Absolutely. I said in the beginning of this interview, I do believe totally what von Däniken stands for, that all the major terrestrial religions have been implanted, introduced on our planet by alien visitations, one time or permanent presences on our planet through the last 15,000 years.
So the flying disc technology, where does that originate from?
Information trickles down in the universe through multiple channels and pathways. I've been thinking for a long time, how could this be that eating from the tree of knowledge can be a sin? Coming from an atheist, dialectico-materialist culture of Eastern Europe and an engineer by training, I couldn't be more than skeptical of this biblical statement that eating from the tree of knowledge is a sin. But then the more I've read accounts of, through alien contacts, of destroyed planets, destroyed solar systems, the Pleiadians destroyed their sun with many planets and billions of people 200,000 years ago, before a part of them escaping to our planet, according to Billy Meyer. A planet in our own solar system that was moving between Mars and Jupiter, that gave the rise of the asteroid belt, was blown in a war 150, 60,000 years ago. The planet Milona, Maldek. This trickling down of knowledge happens through multiple pathways. These are face-to-face handshake contacts with extraterrestrials that would come with the blueprints and the drawings of a new advanced technology. These are faked alien crashes of craft that the aliens would kind of hand-me-down crashes into our culture to jolt, to shock our scientists away from their paradigm of accepting reality and into the new belief system that aliens do exist, and this hardware definitely came from upstairs, not from our planet. There have been multiple telepathic contacts where there would be no face-to-face meeting. The person may not even be aware of somebody telepathically implanting ideas, thoughts, poetry, knowledge, science, formulas, equations, theories in his head. The Pleiadians have been for 200 years on this planet, and they have been quietly implanting knowledge in many choice scientists, maybe of the Aryan race, the Pleiadians themselves being Aryan. Einstein was one such scientist. Many others have been contacted telepathically by the Pleiadians and many other races.
When you say contacted telepathically, you don't mean to say that some alien is just spending his whole day and night sitting around thinking about talking to somebody on Earth.
Well, actually that's exactly what they do. Not living
You don't think
50, 70 or 100 years the way we do, but living several hundred to 1,000 years as the Pleiadians do. They wouldn't mind spending 200 years on our planet, which would be like 20 years for us as Peace Corps volunteers in a third world nation in Africa, teaching math and physics in their more primitive schools.
Don't you think it would be a lot more practical to realize that maybe these great thinkers achieved a high level of consciousness, and when they reached that level of consciousness, they tapped into a different form of knowledge where they perceived...
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is all true, and I think all these processes are running in parallel, interweaving each other. I mean, the universe is way more complex than we can even imagine.
Well, when you say telepathic, you seem to think of me looking at you trying to send a thought or an idea to you. And it's hard for me to conceive that aliens are spending their time. It's like me trying to deal with a lizard. Why would they want to sit around and try and communicate with us? I could see them wanting to be maybe helpful to a lower society. Why spend the lifetime trying to talk to somebody?
Well, we've all seen the National Geographic series about Coco the gorilla that was trained by that lady anthropologist, the sign language of the deaf mute. And Coco the gorilla presently has a language capacity, a vocabulary of about 1,000 words. So this may answer your question in a way. Why would a scientist waste his time trying to teach Coco the gorilla not only an advanced sign language of a human race, but basically to advance the gorilla's mental abilities, so that many years into the exercise we can literally come to tears following the mental pattern of this ape, basically ape. We realize that
So some humans could be an alien experiment.
yes. There are many ways of telepathy in the universe. There are many data banks, data sources that we can tap into. We can tap into the mind of an individual extraterrestrial being on this planet, on another planet in our solar system, on a different solar system, in a different universe altogether. There are higher level of databases that are non-personal. The Akashic records around our planet, similar records that exist in every solar system, similar records that exist in every galaxy. These are just very few of the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of different types of data storage databases in the universe.
I want to ask you a question about the Illuminati. You mentioned that. I've heard other people mention the Illuminati. But no one has told me who they are, specifically who they are, where they come from, and what are they doing now. Do you have any evidence to support that other than just a general statement that the Illuminati is a group of conspirators that are controlling our society? I'd like to know how they're controlling our society also.
Well, I do not have a piece of a German flying saucer to prove that these existed. So all my talks about the existence of advanced flying devices have been based on second, third, and multiple hand evidence. Even the photographs that I have are not 100% proof. But with my engineering and scientific intuition, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that all of these stories and probably many more were true. In a similar vein, I do not have a secret taped video interview of a meeting of the Illuminati secret Politburo that runs this country or even this whole planet, that would prove undoubtedly that a lot of famous men that have official functions in governments, in academies of sciences, that serve as figures of culture, writers, poets, cinematographers, that many of them do sit on these secret meetings.
Well, what secret meetings?
Well, for example, the Alternative 3 book talks about regular monthly meetings of the American, should we call it MJ-12, and the Russian MJ-12. The American real secret political Politburo, the governmental secret Politburo, whatever number, small number of people, 10, 12, 20. And the Russian one, 2 nuclear submarines docking under the ice of the North Pole. The only place where they realized they would be able to conduct their meetings without being monitored and bugged.
So this is a group of powerful people that
This is
plan the future.
when we say Illuminati, my feeling is that your question probably concerns 1 or 2 or 3 of these building blocks of the conspiratorial pyramid on our planet. When I say Illuminati, I mean the overall management structure that runs from the multiple terrestrial conspiratorial level up to the highest Illuminati circles on the planet and into the extraterrestrial and celestial management circles. My long research into Illuminati presence on the planet, and I have to admit that I am not an expert in this field. I know many other people that I consider my personal tutors in the field. My research has told me that the Illuminati presence on the planet has been interwoven with the Luciferian presence on the planet.
Could you define that a little bit more? What do you mean by Luciferian?
according to the Urantia book, 250,000 years ago approximately, there was a certain philosophical disagreement, certain philosophical difference of opinions, of viewpoints about the nature of the universe, about the nature of the Universal Father, and especially about the way this part of the universe should develop in the future. Certain number of celestial entities and angelic beings join the ranks of Lucifer and Satan that were, according to the Urantia book, real beings with personalities and not just literature, metaphorical images of the evil beginning of the universe. A lot of celestial beings chose the side of Lucifer, and this is how the Luciferian philosophical school of thought and the Luciferian following appeared in our local universe, according to the Urantia book, 250,000 years ago. This story sounds very skeptical, very schizophrenic, very tabloid, but the Urantia book is here for anyone to explore. I think I have this is the book cover of the book, available from the Urantia Society in Chicago. $32 at the metaphysical bookstores, the Alexandria too, the Mandala and the Phoenix bookstore carry it. This is probably the most important revelatory book of the Trinitarian universe, the next installment of the New Testament, the view of the universe according to the Trinity, according to the Universal Father, and according to Christ Michael. And in this book I found the best description of the history of the Luciferian rebellion. There are 3 papers on the Luciferian rebellion, complete with a Luciferian manifesto of political freedoms. This is, in my opinion, the most important single document and the most important single happening and philosophical and religious division in our local universe and in our planet respectively, that has influenced profoundly the religious, philosophical, historical, economic and cultural lives on our planet. So to come back to your question,
Yes.
The Illuminati are a secret society founded in Germany in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, and they've been quietly expanding their presence in Europe and the United States subsequently. But they are not the only secret society on the planet. Freemasonry, with its different branches of the past centuries, the Bilderbergers of the 20th century as a political society, the Trilateral Commission and the Council of Foreign Relations as invitation-only, limited membership clubs, are many of the facets of this pyramid structure of closed, underground, secret societies, invitation only, limited membership, with very heavy penalties for divulging and releasing information about their proceedings. The Communist Party was built on the patterns of the Masonic and Illuminati secret party cells.
Question, I'd like to go back to the German UFOs. These were from a film that was apparently produced sometime in the 1940s, is that correct?
The film was shot with cameras running at the test site when these low-level demonstration flights were done over the test site in Germany. I don't know, associated, affiliated members, I don't know, of this German secret society, the Thule Gesellschaft, had access to photographs of these low-level flights.
But no film of the low-level flights.
No film. I know of several other films that I'm trying to find, and in one of them shows movie footage of a craft flying or taking off or something like that.
And you believe, sincerely believe, that these are factual representations of flying craft developed by the German or the Nazi government during the 1940s. And these crafts actually flew and were useful.
Oh yeah, yeah. I absolutely believe that. Renato Vesco, which is the Italian Werner von Braun, in his book Intercept But Don't Shoot, has 24 accounts of full fighters, Kugelblitz attacks on enemy Allied bomber formations that had devastating consequences. It would be one pass over the formation and several bombers would drop off the sky. These things were tested, and I have to underline several times that, well, the Germans did lose the European war, but they won the South Polar War. When Admiral Byrd landed there in the winter of 46, spring of 47, he was beaten back, badly beaten back, just in 2 weeks' time. He lost all his planes and he hastily retreated. I have another video documentary from the American Academy of Dissident Sciences about the secret craft the Germans were using from the South Pole and Admiral Byrd's campaign to the South Pole. So there is absolutely no doubt in my mind. I can talk for hours on the physical feasibility, on the engineering feasibility, on many details of the craft that have never showed in any other literature. The shape is unique. I've never seen this shape in any other UFO photographs. The very idea of a tank turret suspended upside down is so ridiculous that no hoaxer would ever think about it. Certain subtle deformities of the craft that are due to the extremely intensive gravitational fields, electromagnetic fields around the craft, could not be produced by any hoaxer. This is impossible to produce in a double exposure when the sun is peeking behind the rim of the craft. It's my definite belief that these are real photographs. Some experts were able to identify the model of the gun. These are high velocity, high power, long muzzle, tank guns, 75 millimeter times 70. The length of the gun is 70 times the caliber of the gun. High power, high velocity guns produced at the end of the Second World War. And so, I mean, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that these craft were flying, that they were test flown and then taken down to the South Pole. Some of them went in orbit around the Earth. This craft was able probably to go to the moon because it had sleeping compartments on the top 3 stories, on the top 3 levels of the cabin here. You don't need a sleeping compartment of a craft that can circle the Earth in 2 hours. What for are you going to sleep in the craft when you're going to move from base to base in 2 hours? You don't need to sleep in a bus, in a city bus that covers the city in 2 hours. I mean,
Maybe they want to party. Maybe they had some...
oh, they sure want to take their Fräuleins, they sure want to take their Fräuleins and choice French champagne in around the Earth orbit and have some real fun there. But still these are little details that simply do not coincide with the idea that this is all hoaxed, that this is all models hanging on a string.
Where are these now?
Some of them are in the hands of the superpowers because a lot of these craft was secretly redistributed later on by the Illuminati terrestrial Politburo and moved from Germany to Russia, to the United States, to Britain, to France. On the highest levels of government and even beyond the government, wars are waged not for exterminating, killing and destroying the enemy. Wars are waged for loading the government credit card with armament loans. Wars are waged for what the 80s planned to do in the 80s and 90s, reduction of the population. And wars are waged for increasing the security and secrecy in a society so that the Illuminati can engage in their black projects with impunity.
When you say Illuminati, is this, some people have a card that says, membership card that says Illuminati on it, or is this an all-encompassing term for any?
Both ways. It can be both ways. They do have membership cards with very strong oaths and even stronger penalties for talking outside of their organization. Much stronger than the mafia penalties.
Do you know this from what research?
For many books. From many books. I mean, there are books that would be able to fill a library bigger than this one many times over with books on the secret terrestrial societies.
Speaking about Tesla, do you have any evidence that shows that Tesla did create this motor vehicle that you had mentioned, that did create a lot of these free energy devices?
Mm-hmm.
The reason I ask you is because several other people have come forward to say that there's no proof that those things ever existed. It's just speculation and people trying to capitalize on Tesla's scientific knowledge and writing books. And
Absolutely,
things that never existed.
From 1964, when after Solzhenitsyn published his first book, One Day in the Life of One Denisovich, until 1984, for 30 years, people have been raising the same arguments against him. What proofs do you have of these huge Siberian archipelago of concentration camps? You don't have any proofs. You cannot prove that. Little by little, the story turned out to be a lot more ugly than the wildest estimates of the most leftist Moscow intellectuals of the 60s. In the 60s, they thought, well, maybe 10,000 people went through the Stalinist purges and into the camps. Right now, 30 years after Solzhenitsyn became famous, we know that more than 60 million went through the camps and 20 million of them did not come back. The magnitude of the projects run by the secret evilarchy are simply, I mean, it's hard to fathom. I'm using these broad analogies because for someone coming from Eastern Europe, someone coming from the Balkan Peninsula, which gave another word in the English language called Balkanization. To Balkanize a country is the same as to Beirutize or to Lebanize a country in the end of the 20th century. I mean, one could get hardly a better school of conspiracies than on the Balkan Peninsula or in the Middle East these days. So my definite feeling is that all these secret projects have been true and then they've been quietly run by the secret societies. Tesla did not die according to Orson Welles' film, and my feeling is that Orson Welles is a major, very important mouthpiece of the Illuminati evilarchy. He did not die alone, forgotten by everybody in his flat in Waldorf, Astoria. But he worked until the very last days of his life in the most secret project of our century, the the Philadelphia experiment of invisibility, time travel, and teleportation of a Navy ship, of a huge Navy ship. I've seen photographs where Tesla's image is airbrushed from a photo where he stands one head away from Einstein. In my country, Tesla was downgraded, downplayed as an inventor not even of the Edisonian caliber. I thought that he invented some radio valves, and that was all he invented. And I was astonished to find the real magnitude of his inventions. I don't have proofs that Tesla invented a death ray that was so devastating that everything was dynamited at the end of the experiment. All the hardware was dynamited and the drawings were burned. Definitely the Illuminati have a copy of them safely locked in their safes. But some of the most advanced technologies are so dangerous that definitely I wouldn't be amazed if some extraterrestrial presences on the planet are involved in mopping up and trying to kind of help us forget and disinvent these technologies because of their tremendous danger. So from one hand, I don't have any proofs of what Tesla did. On the other hand, I am dead sure that everything that we've heard about is true, that all the rumors are true, and many times over, simply because the universe is way more complex and hard to imagine than we can even think about it. And if these secret societies have been around for many thousands of years, and if this is the mode of operation of this Luciferian school of thought for the last 250,000 years, I wouldn't be amazed at their dexterity, at their geniusness in organizing these secrets.
With regards to these German flying discs, did any of them escape to the hollow portion of the Earth?
The Hollow Earth story is another big story that I haven't made up my mind yet. It could be all true, or it could be a clever Secret Service hoax to cover up the presence of all these flying craft on the South Pole, to explain them away as extraterrestrial. It's far easier to say that these are extraterrestrial than to have to explain to your own population that 3 years after we beat the hell out of the Third Reich and the Wehrmacht, in 2 days we lost all our planes, and there is a power operating from the poles, and I quote from Admiral Byrd's interview that he gave after his return from the South Pole, that has the ability to fly from pole to pole, and that probably would be the power that the next world war would be waged with. I'm paraphrasing now a little bit from his interview.
Have you seen any evidence at all to prove to you, as well as the general public, that there is a hollow Earth?
I have not seen evidence, any evidence. I have some photographs coming from an early Vela meteorological satellite that have black spots at the place of the South Pole. But, and I thought at the beginning that these may be candidates for the first photographs of a hollow Earth. But measuring the dimensions of these holes, they are too big. They go down south to almost to Colorado and Denver. Simply, there wouldn't be space for Canada and the Northwest and the Northern Territories if the Earth is if the hole is so big. It could be a product of the particular optics of the satellite that produced the images. At the same time, the WASPE book, OAHSPE, the revelatory book of the Jehovian universe, the next installment to the Old Testament, talks about multiple concentric realities that are centered around the Earth. Our material world is just one level, one floor of this reality. It's like the Russian concentric Matryoshka dolls. The next reality is a little bit larger diameter. For us it's air. You can fly through, move through, nothing would happen. For them, at higher frequency existence, it is as solid and as hard as the floor and all the material artifacts in our reality. And so there are multiple such realities around our planet, called the atmospheric kingdoms. Atmospheric because they occupy the space within our atmosphere. It's a big book out there for anyone who is interested to explore. So according to that book, there have been multiple concentric realities above and beyond the surface of our planet. So in analogy to that, why not beneath and under the surface of our planet? In Earth, hollow Earth.
Do you have any access to legitimate evidence that there are tunnels throughout the center of the Earth reaching other countries that someone could travel within?
I don't have any. I've not been in a tunnel, but I know from many sources that there are multiple tunnel systems that were drilled by numerous previous extinct or still surviving in part civilizations on our planet. There are multiple underground pocket civilizations, probably under Mount Shasta, probably under some of the South American mountains. one living under India that have blue skin. Major characters of Indian mythology are known to have had blue skin, literally bluish skin. Major underground colony under the Gobi Desert. Then from Billy Meyer, I've heard that their underground base was under the Gobi Desert, the Pleiadian underground base. They had another underground base in the United States, several smaller ones in present-day Switzerland and so on. There are underwater bases under the ocean. All of these were connected with massive underground, huge tunnels, 25 meters, 70 feet diameter tunnels, the so-called spelunkers. I've heard stories of the Army Corps of Engineers bumping into such by mistake or examining them, driving with jeeps for forever without any end to the tunnel inside them. I definitely believe that these tunnels exist and that they were drilled by many previous civilizations. The technology of drilling is very advanced. We don't have to dig it with picks and shovels and dynamite it and remove the dirt and shore the tunnel and pour concrete and hydro-insulate it and so on. The Germans were drilling their tunnels in solid rock formations using sonic laser, according to a lady that read these materials in some secret CIA files. So technologies for drilling tunnels are so advanced that probably this could be kind of a drilling machine just moving through the rock and producing an empty, finished tunnel without the necessity to haul out all the dirt and the debris.
One last question before we break for...
But back to the Inner Earth story, I am waiting for a video footage from West Germany of it was a weather report from a German satellite that did not go through the American censorship system of the NSA. So nobody at the satellite station figured something was fishy. Nobody at the television station got alerted. Not even the weather report guy that was reading the weather news. Anyway, it was Northern Europe from a satellite high in orbit. All the storms, all the snows and so on. But there was a round circle at the place of the North Pole. And someone of my Swedish friend, he has a German friend, recorded that, and I'm trying to get a copy of this film. This would be either a little engineered leak of another of the skeletons, of the multiple skeletons that are in the Illuminati closet. Skeletons that have to come out in the public if they would like to launch their New World Order and the New Age. In the same way as the archipelago skeletons from the Gulag came out in the public. A nation cannot go on forward without laundering the dirty linen. So a lot of these stories, the alternative 3 story for me is real, and this is an engineered leak by the Illuminati to launder one more of these skeletons. Bilik's revelations about time travel, teleportation, throughportation, the Phoenix time tunnel, they are all true. Another attempt to launder a story that's 50 years old, 60 years old probably. The first experiments in time travel started in the 30s by Tesla, with direct funding by the Navy and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Bill Cooper's stories about underground construction, tunnels, bases, underground Frankensteinian factories are all true in my opinion. This is another of the skeletons that has to come out. Of course with a proper spin control that, well, these are not Frankensteinian factories, but this is an alien race far more advanced than us that is trying to out-engineer us, to outperform us, to re-engineer us genetically into a better hybrid race. So, I have a feeling that, all these stories are true.
All right, thank you very much for the interview today. We'll wait to hear what kind of research you come up with in the future, and it'll be very interested in seeing the actual film flight of these crafts.
Anyone who is interested in further detailed information, please give me a call at 310-473-9717 here in Los Angeles. My name once more is Vladimir Terziski, and well, me and Al Bilik are the organizers of and the founders of the American Academy of Dissident Sciences, and this is the most famous couch and the only property of this academy so far, the famous interview couch of the American Academy of Dissident Sciences. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be very glad to be with you soon again with the further story, with the rest of the story.